History isn't dead. It lives in memories, and today you're hearing ours.
And sometimes the past doesn't stay quiet.
I'm Walter.
And I'm Clara.
We remember the years, not just what happened, but how it felt. 1906, that one, still echoes. Join us. I remember 10 moments from that year, 10 I'll never forget. It began with a standoff between empires. Then the earth cracked beneath the sea. In Africa, one last rebellion roared, and on Christmas Eve, someone's voice crossed the ocean. I was just a boy, but I remember the way my father folded the newspaper that morning, tight, like it meant something. He said the world was on edge over Morocco, that Germany was trying to stare down the French, and the rest of us were just holding our breath. They said war was close, but instead they built a compromise. France kept its foot on Morocco's neck, and Germany walked away, for now. But I didn't understand all that at the time. I just remember my father muttering, "It won't be the last time they fight over Africa." Algeciras cooled the fire, but it lit the fuse for something far worse. The world didn't know it yet, but it had just bought time. And that year, that was just the beginning. January 31st. I still remember the way grown-ups whispered about it for days. They said it was so powerful, even the earth under the sea cracked open. Over 1,000 lives lost. Entire towns vanished into the dust and sea. Papa said the sea pulled back and then roared in again like thunder. It wasn't just one quake either. They say it shook the ocean floor for hundreds of miles. A quake that rang across the world. And yet, barely anyone outside heard a word of it. And while the ground was still trembling, far across the sea, another kind of power was rising.
Admiralty confirms the launch of HMS Dreadnought.
February 10th. The world's balance tilted just a bit. In a shipyard in Portsmouth, England, they called her a revolution on water. The first all-big-gun battleship, faster, deadlier. Other navies panicked. Germany, America, even Japan, they rushed to match her. That's when the race began. Papa said, if you could build faster, you could own the oceans. And Britain? They wanted the world to see it wasn't just about ships, it was fear. One launch, and the empires were watching each other sideways ever since. And so, the world began to build, to outgun, to out-dreadnought. But while the empires were building ships, others were trying to build something even harder, a cure.
Dear Dr. Heine, the test detects syphilis before the first sore appears. We may finally stop the spread.
May 10th, 1906. Berlin. Not a war this time, but a quiet war against something far deadlier. Dr. August Wassermann had found a way to track a ghost hiding in the blood. Syphilis. It could rot the mind, twist the body, and until then, it left no trace. It was more than a test. It was a warning for soldiers, for mothers, for the whole of Europe, and for the first time, the invisible had a fingerprint. But It didn't reach everyone in time, but not all wounds were invisible. Some battles couldn't be tested in a lab.
It's Zulu activity near Greytown, Rebellion.
Back then, I didn't even know where Natal was. But I remember the men outside the general store arguing about a tax that was pushing people too far. They said a Zulu chief named Bambatha had had enough. He led his people into the hills, armed with old rifles and fury. The British sent in thousands, guns, horses, cannons, to crush a rebellion sparked by a single tax on huts. It wasn't a war. It was a slaughter. Bambatha was killed. Or maybe not. Some say he escaped, vanished across the river. Folks whispered about him for years. That rebellion, they buried it. But in homes, in songs, it never really died. But halfway across the world, another kind of war was being fought. One with ink and microscopes. Clara. Do you remember that July in 1906? The headlines from a place far colder than here, but something warmer stirred that day.
Of course I remember.
Before we move on, do me a favor, my dear. If you're enjoying this journey through time, a like and a comment mean more than you'd think. It tells the world these stories matter, that we matter for remembering them.
Dear Mother, they passed the law. I was there. We stood outside in our shawls and skirts, crying, "We can vote."
There were moments that year that made you proud to be alive, and this was one of them. I remember Mama placing her hand on the newspaper as if to feel the moment. They weren't just allowed to vote, they could run for office too. 30 women, Walter, 30, and not just the rich ones. Factory girls, farmers' wives, teachers. In a world run by men, these women made history, quietly, boldly. I think Mama cried a little that day. I know I did.
And Clara, you remember that woman in New York? The one they said was spreading something through kitchens?
What? No, what was that about?
My dear sister, something is making the children ill. I fear the cook is not well.
Typhoid wasn't a stranger in those days, but a cook carrying it in secret? That was something else. The families kept getting sick, and no one could figure out why. They brought in a sanitary engineer, a man named Soper. He didn't just follow the germs, he followed the cook. When they told her she carried death in her hands, she didn't believe a word. They took her by force and locked her away, not for what she did, but for what lived inside her. They called her Typhoid Mary. She never got sick, not once, but she spent the rest of her life quarantined. That storm wasn't just inside her. Nature had worse in store that year.
Hong Kong flooded. Dead everywhere.
The wind came before the sky even turned, and then Hong Kong vanished in the storm. They said the wind tore off roofs like paper, and the sea came roaring in behind it. More than 10,000 souls gone in a single day. Can you believe it, Clara? 10,000! Do you remember that photo from the paper? The man pulling his daughter from the wreckage?
I was only 6, but I still remember the faces on the front page.
Some storms pass and leave you changed. Others never really leave. And then, that December, a voice broke through the static. The world would never sound the same.
Christmas Eve. Hello, hello. Can you hear this? This is Branch Rock Station.
December 24th, the night before Christmas. But for a few engineers in Massachusetts, it wasn't about sleigh bells. It was about a voice reaching through the air. Reginald Fessenden stepped to the mic. No one knew what would come out. But then, music, a violin, and his voice. Ships at sea froze. They couldn't believe it. A human voice, Christmas hymns, a reading from the Bible, over the air. It was the first voice ever heard through radio waves, not dots and dashes. Words, music, something human. And now, the whole world talks through invisible wires. But that night, it all started with a single whisper.
Walter, since you remember everything, do you remember who came and went that year?
Well, Clara, I'm 89 now. Maybe it's just the age catching up to me. Mind giving me a hand with this one?
Okay. Susan B. Anthony passed away March 13th, 1906, 86 years old, and still fighting. Pierre Curie, struck by a carriage in the Paris rain, one of science's brightest minds, lost in seconds, died April 19th. What else? In the East, a baby born in the Forbidden City. They called him Pu Yi, the last emperor of China, February 7th. And far across the ocean, another child came into the world, June 3rd, 1906, Josephine Baker. She would dance her way into history.
Well, that was just the first half of 1906.
And you won't believe what the second half brings.
But that's a story for another evening. So be sure to subscribe, dear. We'll keep the fire warm for you.
Leave us a little note in the comments. Tap that like button, my love. We love hearing what you remember.
Until part 2, keep remembering, stay safe.